Are you saying?
I question his, huh?
Are you saying?
Sane?
Yes.
That's relative.
Think I could talk to you except through music.
Van Houten claims she originally lied about Manson's role in the murders to protect him during their first trial.
Was I happy when what was done?
When you found out that you weren't going to the gas chamber.
You're talking about dying. Now, it gets me nervous.
Why?
Did you have any thoughts about something? Was you wanting to go anywhere?
Were you happy when you found out you weren't going to go to the gas chamber, Charles?
I knew I wasn't going to go to the gas chamber because I hadn't done anything wrong.
In the summer of 1969, a wave of terror swept through the idyllic landscape of Los Angeles. A series of gruesome murders, seemingly random yet connected by a sinister thread, sent shockwaves through the nation. At the heart of this darkness was a man, a cult leader, and a manipulator, Charles Manson. The Manson family, a commune of disillusioned young people, were drawn to Manson's charismatic, yet disturbing, ideology. Under his influence, they transformed from innocent dreamers into instruments of violence. This video will delve into the twisted minds of these individuals, exploring the psychological factors that led to such horrific acts. We'll examine the events that unfolded, from the formation of the Manson family to the infamous Tate-LaBianca murders. We'll analyze the trial that captivated the nation, the chilling testimony of the survivors, and the enduring legacy of one of history's most notorious cult leaders. Prepare to be immersed in a world of darkness, deception, and the ultimate betrayal of human potential. Welcome to Insight Wave, the channel dedicated to investigating both solved and unsolved cases from around the world. If you haven't already, please take a moment to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest crime stories delivered directly to your inbox. Born no-name Maddox in 1934 to a teenage mother, Kathleen Maddox, in Cincinnati, Ohio, his life was marked by instability and neglect from the outset. His father, a mysterious figure, remained largely absent, leaving a void in young Charles's life. Kathleen's struggles with alcoholism and a series of fleeting relationships cast a long shadow over Charles's early years. She frequently abandoned him, leaving him in the care of relatives or institutions. This pattern of neglect and abandonment would become a recurring theme, shaping his troubled childhood and sowing the seeds of future darkness. One particularly harrowing incident highlights the depth of Kathleen's disregard for her son's well-being. A local waitress offered to buy young Charles, to which Kathleen nonchalantly replied, "A pitcher of beer and he's yours." This casual indifference to her child's future would become a recurring theme in Manson's early life. In 1939, Kathleen's involvement in a crime landed her in prison, leaving Charles to be raised by his religious grandparents. When she was released, there was a brief period of stability, but it was short-lived. In 1947, unable to provide for her son, Kathleen had him declared a ward of the state. This decision sent Charles to the Guybolt School for Boys in Indiana, a Catholic-run reformatory. Despite his mother's promises of a better future, Charles remained confined to the institution, his hopes of a normal life dashed. It was during this time that his rebellious nature began to manifest, foreshadowing the darker path he would later take. The strict discipline and institutionalization at Guybolt further alienated him from society, fostering a sense of resentment and defiance. Charles Manson's tumultuous journey into a life of crime began in the harsh realities of institutionalization. After escaping from the Guybolt School for Boys, he tried his hand at homelessness in Indianapolis. Falling in with a group of bums, winos, and hobos, he took up petty theft before moving on to burglary. Caught breaking into a local grocery store by Indianapolis police after his mother refused to take him back, Manson was sent to another reform school located on a farm, but this one was much worse than the first. His first encounter with the law, stemming from a burglary attempt, led to his placement in another reform school, a farm-based institution. The conditions within this facility were far more brutal than his previous experience. A traumatic sexual assault by older inmates, coupled with the lack of intervention from authorities, marked a turning point in his life. By his recollection, it was while working in the dairy shortly after his arrival that a group of older, larger boys pinned him down while he struggled. Two managed to rape him before an authority figure arrived, telling the boys, "You know I don't allow any wrestling," before telling Manson to wash his face and stop crying. The subsequent retaliation he exacted on his attackers further solidified his violent tendencies. Just a few nights after curfew, Manson stole a heavy window crank and snuck over to the first boy's bed while he was sleeping. After beating him bloody, he drew the blankets over his victim's head and stashed the crank beneath his other rapist's bunk. The boy survived and Manson was never caught, but he had gained a taste for violence. A year later, Manson escaped once again, embarking on a crime spree that involved car theft, armed robbery, and interstate transportation of stolen goods. His actions landed him in federal custody in Washington, D.C., at the age of 17. Despite the relative improvement in his living conditions, the lessons he learned from his troubled past remained deeply ingrained. His first parole hearing was revoked after he was caught committing another sexual assault. Charles Manson's brief taste of freedom after his parole was short-lived. Struggling to find work and connect with society, he found solace in a brief romance with 15-year-old Rosalie Jean Willis. Their whirlwind courtship quickly turned into marriage, fueled by hope and the desire for a better life. However, financial constraints and the arrival of their first child pushed Manson back towards a life of crime. He accepted a lucrative offer from local mobsters to transport a stolen car to Florida, only to be cheated out of his earnings. Enraged, he retaliated by stealing the car back and abandoning it. Fearing retribution from his former associates, Manson fled to California with his wife. Shortly after their arrival, he was arrested and sentenced to 3 years in Terminal Island Prison for car theft. Despite his claims of wanting to go straight, his relationship with Willis began to deteriorate. As their son, Charlie Manson Jr., was born in 1956, their visits became less frequent, but as time passed, the visits dwindled down to letters. Then, those stopped too. Soon after learning that Willis had left the state with a trucker and taken their son with her, Manson attempted to escape from prison by stealing a car and a maintenance uniform before he was caught trying to cut the chain-link fence. With his marriage falling apart and his dreams of a normal life shattered, Manson turned to a darker path. He immersed himself in the criminal underworld, learning the ropes of the sex trade from an older pimp. This marked a significant turning point, as he began to manipulate women, using their love and devotion to serve his own ends. The young man who had been abandoned by his mother and his wife now sought to control and exploit women, a pattern that would continue throughout his life. His experiences in prison and his disillusionment with society had hardened his heart, paving the way for the formation of the Manson family and the horrific crimes they would commit. Charles Manson's second taste of freedom upon his release in 1958 was short-lived. He quickly became entangled in a life of crime once again, this time as a pimp. He recruited Leona "Candy" Stevens, a woman he both loved and exploited. Despite his romantic feelings for her, he continued to use her as a sex worker, a decision that would have long-lasting consequences. Manson's criminal activities caught up with him once more when he was arrested for forging a check. The leniency of the court, who warned him of the severe consequences of further offenses, did little to deter him. He continued his criminal pursuits, this time venturing into sex trafficking by taking his group of women across state lines. His actions violated the Mann Act, a federal law that prohibited transporting individuals across state lines for immoral purposes. After a brief stint in Mexico, where he claimed to have undergone various experiences, including training as a matador and consuming psychedelic mushrooms, Manson was arrested and extradited to the United States. Sentenced to 10 years in prison, he used this time to pursue his interest in music and psychology. However, his dream of becoming a rock star remained elusive, and his underlying desperation was evident as he requested to stay in prison upon his release in 1967.
Oh, I don't know pain. I don't know pain. I have no depth of pain. I have no depth of suffering. I don't know ridicule. I don't know all the bad things. I haven't been punished by you all my life since I was 10 years old. I've been in every reform school you got across the country and used to lay down and have to get my ass whipped till I couldn't walk. Tell me about some pain.
And that's our fault. That's all
No,
those people
no
want.
fault. Make strong, good pain. Understand pain. Not bad. Pain's not bad. It's good. It teaches you things. It teaches you things. Like when you put your hand in fire, ow, you know not to do that again. Yeah. Yeah, I understand.
Charles Manson's release in 1967 coincided with the height of the Summer of Love, a cultural revolution marked by psychedelic drugs, free love, and a rejection of traditional values. This tumultuous era provided a fertile ground for Manson's manipulative and charismatic personality to flourish. Despite his outdated musical style and struggles to adapt to the changing times, Manson found a certain allure in the counterculture movement. He quickly became entangled in the drug-fueled world of San Francisco, experimenting with LSD and embracing a lifestyle of free love and promiscuity. One of his earliest followers was Mary Brunner, a young college librarian who offered him shelter. Their relationship soon turned romantic, and Brunner became the first member of what would later be known as the Manson family. Manson's philosophy of non-attachment and his ability to manipulate and control others were central to the formation of this cult-like group. Another key figure in the early days of the Manson family was Lynette Squeaky, from Young Runaway, who was drawn to Manson's charismatic personality and his promises of a new way of life. Through a combination of sexual manipulation, drug use, and psychological control, Manson was able to recruit and indoctrinate a group of young, vulnerable individuals. The exact nature of Manson's influence over his followers remains a subject of debate. Some argue that he was a master manipulator who brainwashed his followers into committing heinous acts. Others suggest that his followers were drawn to his charismatic personality and his promises of a free and liberated lifestyle. Charles Manson, a figure of enduring fascination and horror, was a master manipulator who exploited the vulnerabilities of young, impressionable individuals. His ability to weave a tapestry of illusion, blending psychedelic experimentation, cult-like devotion, and a twisted ideology, allowed him to exert extraordinary control over his followers. Manson's charisma and his promise of a free and liberated lifestyle attracted a diverse group of individuals, many of whom were seeking meaning and purpose in the turbulent social climate of the late 1960s. By offering a sense of belonging and a radical alternative to conventional society, he was able to cultivate a loyal following. One of the core tactics Manson employed was the manipulation of consciousness through psychedelic drugs. LSD, in particular, was a powerful tool that allowed him to break down the barriers of rational thought and instill his own distorted worldview. By inducing altered states of consciousness, he could exploit the suggestibility of his followers, making them more susceptible to his influence. Furthermore, Manson's cult-like practices, including communal living, shared beliefs, and a strict hierarchy, fostered a sense of unity and purpose among his followers. By creating a closed-off community, he was able to isolate them from outside influences and reinforce his own authority. The tragic case of Ruth Ann Morehouse highlights the darker side of Manson's influence. By exploiting the trust of a young, vulnerable girl, he demonstrated a willingness to use manipulation and deception to achieve his goals. After meeting her father, Reverend Dean Morehouse, while hitchhiking, Manson earned an invitation to dinner, where he took a liking to both Morehouse's piano and his daughter. Told, "Whatever is mine is yours," Manson soon returned to the Morehouse home and talked the Reverend into trading the piano for a Volkswagen bus and then giving that bus to Manson. The first thing Manson did with this bus was take Ruth Ann to Mendocino, California. Here he seduced and raped the 14-year-old, afterwards claiming, "I was just as much a child as she was." Before leaving town for Los Angeles in pursuit of his musical dreams, Manson told the girl that she should join him when she was old enough or otherwise able to. Within a week, she had emancipated herself from her parents, married a bus driver, left her new husband, and run away to meet Manson in San Jose. This incident underscores the extent to which Manson was capable of exploiting the weaknesses of others, even those who were initially resistant to his influence. Charles Manson's brief encounter with the Beach Boys and Terry Melcher provides a fascinating glimpse into the complex and often bizarre world of the Manson family. His ability to manipulate and exploit others, even those in positions of power and influence, was a key factor in his rise to notoriety. The relationship between Manson and Dennis Wilson, a prominent member of the Beach Boys, was particularly intriguing. Wilson was drawn to Manson's charismatic personality and unconventional lifestyle, but the relationship quickly soured as Manson and his followers began to exploit Wilson's generosity and resources, stealing upwards of $100,000 from him. Manson's attempt to break into the music industry through Terry Melcher, a prominent music producer, also highlights his ambition and his willingness to use any means necessary to achieve his goals. However, his erratic behavior and his inability to conform to industry standards ultimately derailed his aspirations. The question of whether Manson's failed attempts to break into the music industry fueled his rage and led to the horrific crimes committed by the Manson family remains open to interpretation. While it is possible that his frustrations with the music industry contributed to his growing disillusionment and anger, it is important to consider the complex interplay of factors that led to the tragic events of 1969. In the commonly accepted version of events, Sharon Tate and her companions, ex-lover and friend Jay Sebring, Roman Polanski's friend Wojciech Frykowski, and his girlfriend Abigail Folger and Steve Parent, were doomed by a cruel twist of fate. The story goes that Charles Manson had sent his followers to kill everyone living at 10050 Cielo Drive in Los Angeles on the night of August 8, 1969, because it was the house in which Terry Melcher had lived when he and Manson were last in contact. However, this version of events ignores one important detail. According to witnesses at trial, on an afternoon in March, 2 months after Melcher had moved out, Manson arrived at the house looking for him. Told the house was under new ownership, Manson left, but not before new resident Sharon Tate had come to see who was at the door, which could put to rest the myth that Manson sent his followers to kill Melcher 5 months later. Indeed, the truth about what sparked the Tate-LaBianca murders is stranger and more convoluted than the narrative put forth at court, so much so that prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi held back the full story both at trial and in his iconic book on the case, 1974's Helter Skelter, for fear that the jury wouldn't actually believe it. Nevertheless, here it is. 2 weeks before the murder of Sharon Tate, Charles Manson's contacts within the Straight Satan's motorcycle gang complained that the family had sold them a bad batch of mescaline and demanded their money back. Manson, who had already spent the money and had not made the mescaline, sent 2 of his girls and another associate, small-time actor and guitar player Bobby Beausoleil, to get the money from their supplier, a music teacher and part-time chemist named Gary Hinman. After beating Hinman for hours without effect, Beausoleil called for backup. Manson arrived, threatening Hinman himself before slicing the man's face with a sword. Then, after Manson left, Beausoleil continued to unsuccessfully torture Hinman into giving up the money. At the end of 3 days, during which time Atkins and Brunner joined in on torture, he called Manson once again to explain the situation. Well, Manson replied, "You know what to do," at which point Beausoleil stabbed Hinman to death with a Bowie knife as Atkins smothered him with a pillow. While Charles Manson himself claimed he never gave the order to kill anyone, he did tell Beausoleil to stage the crime scene such that it looked like the work of the Black Panthers, prompting Beausoleil to write the word "political piggy" and draw a paw print on the wall in Hinman's blood. Whether this was intended simply to throw police off the trail or to actually incite the race war that Manson supposedly believed was coming and referred to as Helter Skelter, is debatable. But either way, the plan did not work. Beausoleil stole Hinman's car, which broke down on his way up the California coast. When police found him with the victim's vehicle and the murder weapon, they knew they had their man. Charles Manson's twisted ideology, centered around a race war known as Helter Skelter, was a key motivator behind the heinous crimes committed by the Manson family. According to prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi, this apocalyptic vision, inspired by the Beatles' White Album, was a central tenet of Manson's teachings. The murders were intended to ignite this racial conflict, positioning the family as the harbingers of a new world order. However, Manson's own accounts of the events have been inconsistent and contradictory. While he initially embraced the Helter Skelter narrative, he later claimed it was a fabrication to portray himself as insane. Some argue that Manson's true motivations were less about a grand apocalyptic plan and more about maintaining control over his followers. The idea of further killings, including the Tate-LaBianca murders, may not have originated with Manson himself but rather with his followers, who were desperate to protect their leader and ensure the survival of the family. The choice of the Cielo Drive residence may have been a random decision, influenced by Manson's association with the property's former owner, Terry Melcher. Ultimately, the complex interplay of Manson's twisted ideology, the drug-fueled culture of the 1960s, and the personal vulnerabilities of his followers contributed to the tragic events of 1969. While Manson may have played a significant role in inspiring and directing the murders, the extent of his influence and the true motivations behind the crimes remain a subject of debate and speculation. Charles Manson, a name forever etched into the annals of criminal history, transcended the confines of his own life to become a cultural icon, a symbol of evil and depravity. His impact extends far beyond the horrific crimes committed by his followers, shaping popular culture and influencing generations. The Manson family murders, orchestrated by Manson and carried out by his cult members, shocked the nation and the world. The brutal slayings of Sharon Tate, her unborn child, and several others sent shockwaves through society, exposing the dark underbelly of the counterculture movement and the dangerous potential of charismatic leaders to manipulate and control others. Manson's trial became a media spectacle, with his bizarre behavior and outlandish statements capturing the public's imagination. His courtroom antics, including carving an X into his forehead and engaging in bizarre rituals, transformed him into a larger-than-life figure. His influence extended beyond the courtroom, inspiring a cult following and influencing various subcultures and countercultures. The Manson family murders have left an enduring legacy, shaping popular culture and inspiring countless books, movies, and documentaries. Manson himself has become a symbol of evil, his name synonymous with violence and depravity. His music, once dismissed as amateurish, has gained a cult following, and his artwork and writings have become valuable commodities for collectors. The enduring fascination with Charles Manson can be attributed to several factors. His charismatic personality, his ability to manipulate and control others, and the horrific nature of the crimes committed by his followers have all contributed to his enduring legacy. Additionally, the mystery surrounding his motivations and the true nature of his influence over the Manson family continues to intrigue and fascinate. Manson gave an interview whilst in prison. Here are some clips of this interview.
You know, you were sentenced to the gas chamber and then they modified the death penalty. Were you happy when that was done?
Was I happy when what was done?
When you found out that you weren't going to the gas chamber.
You're talking about dying. Now, it gets me nervous.
Why?
Did you have any thoughts about something? Was you wanting to go anywhere?
Were you happy when you found out you weren't going to go to the gas chamber, Charles?
I knew I wasn't going to go to the gas chamber because I hadn't done anything wrong.
You scared to die?
Sometimes I feel I'm scared to live. Living is what scares me. Dying is easy. How long have I been in jail? 34 years? 34 years, so...
Out of 47, you've been here 34.
I've been in jail, prison, a long time, all my life. I was raised up in here. So I understand jail. So I understand myself and I can deal with that. I sit in my cell and I do my number, like a convict does his number. But there's different colors on different people's backs doing different things. It's a different world. I love the world I live in, too, just like Regan loves the world he lives in.
You love the world you live in.
Most assuredly, it's me.
You love all the pain that you've caused people, all the anguish you've caused.
Oh, I don't know pain. I don't know pain. I have no depth of pain. I have no depth of suffering. I don't know ridicule. I don't know all the bad things. I haven't been punished by you all my life since I was 10 years old. I've been in every reform school you got across the country. and used to lay down and have to get my ass whipped till I couldn't walk. Tell me about some pain.
And that's
Yeah.
our fault. That's all
No,
those people
no
want.
fault. Make strong, good pain. Understand pain. Not bad. Pain's not bad. It's good. It teaches you things. It teaches you things. Like when you put your hand in fire, ow, you know not to do that again. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that.
You use the word maniacs on the outside. How are you different from the maniacs on the outside? And why do you call them maniacs? Because you know something, they think you are one.
Yeah, it would reflect. If you hold the negative up to the light, you don't see the light, you just see the negative. So I'm a reflection of your negative, there's no doubt about that, and I can handle that also. I've been handling, ain't I?
I don't know, have you?
Well, I've been up and down these damn hallways, in and out of these nut wards for the last 10 years. You think you could follow that act? I'm playing for my life. You working for money. Get out of here. Get out of here. Where would I go now? Let's see.
What would you do if you got out of here?
If I got out of here.
What if they said to you tomorrow morning, Charles, hey, listen, you're free. You can go wherever you want to go. Do whatever you want to do. What would you do?
I'll probably go out front on the grass and sit down.
Got out of here, there are a lot of people who think you'd go start killing people again.
Again? Well, you guys are misinformed. I haven't killed anyone. I didn't break the law. Judge knew that. But the people didn't want to hear it. The judge knew it. He washed his hands. He said, I know it, but what can I do? People want this.
Judge never said that.
Yeah.
Judge never said
That's
that.
what Older said.
No, Judge didn't say that.
He got off and shook their hands, didn't he? You're so white and pure.
Judge didn't say you were innocent.
Are you innocent?
Innocent of what?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
None of us are innocent.
Yeah, just because you're convicted in a courtroom doesn't mean you're guilty of something.
What does mean you're guilty?
When you know you're guilty.
What about Shay?
What about him?
Well, what about him?
He got killed.
Well, the word is you killed him.
Word is that you're an old woman. Word is you have turkey in the sky. Word is, I don't know what word is. Somebody else tell you that. I didn't tell you that.
Did you kill Shay?
Hell no.
Did you cut Hinman's ear off?
Hell yes.
Why, how did that feel when you cut his ear off?
What did it feel like?
Yeah.
Well, I had done what he said for about 20 years. I'd done everything he told me to do. And I got to thinking, now, why don't this guy do something I tell him to do? And he said, no. I said, well, how comes I'm always doing what you tell me to do, but then you never do what I say do? And he said, well, blah, blah, blah. So I said, now you do what I say. And he said, no. I said, you do exactly what I say. And he said, no. I'm telling you. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. You do exactly what I say. And that's about the extent of it. All this occult, all that hocus pocus stuff that you guys are playing, I don't know nothing about all that.
You know nothing about something called Helter Skelter. Tell me, Charles, I don't know.
It's worse than a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale.
It's a comedy. It's a comedy tragedy.
The body of Sharon Tate is make-believe, isn't it?
That's make-believe.
Make-believe, yeah.
That's make-believe to the people that went in there and did what they did.
Mm-hmm. And who were those people? You
Those-
know who? You know,
yeah.
but you know who they were.
Sure I know who they were.
They were with you at the Spawn Ranch. They were part of
Yeah.
this thing called, if not the Manson family or the Manson cult, the Manson Ranch. Call it what you
So
will.
then, what? You dealt the hand down there in L.A. You and that press, you dealt the hand. You put me on Life magazine, had me convicted before I walked in the courtroom. You had what people wanted to buy. And when they wanted to buy it, they didn't give a damn if they had to convict a district attorney. They'd have convicted the whole building to get that dollar bill going there. They had big bucks going there. He made 27 million, 100 billion. I'm bumming $10, $15 from my friend here.
On the LaBianca murders, he had the following to say after being asked about his involvement.
Did I kill anyone?
No. Did you go in and tie up the LaBiancas that night? Very simple question.
That night.
August 10th, 1969.
That night. August the 10th,
Did you?
1969.
Why duck it? Why dodge it? Why not answer it yes or no once and for all? Put it behind you.
Did I kill anyone?
Did you tie up the LaBiancas? Atkins testified you did.
That's what Susie said?
That's what she said.
Yeah.
And you remember, you were in the courtroom when she said it.
She's written 3 books, and each time she said something different. Each time.
Did you tie him up?
Did I? Well, we came down from Abilene, and
Let's stay in Los Angeles, August 10, 1969.
there was a hole in the wall gang there.
Why don't you want to talk about it, Charles? Why don't you want to?
Because I'm an outlaw, and I go so far, and then that's all you know.
And if you
That's
did,
like asking Jesse James.
and if
did you
and if
shoot somebody?
and if, as others have written and as others have testified and as the media has reported, you did that,
Yeah.
and you sent your friends back in to do the deed, aren't you a coward?
My friends back in to do the terrible deed.
Doesn't
The
that make
wicked
you?
deed. Ta-da. Did we have the castle there with the vampires and the Frankenstein and the bugs and lizards dying in the deserts? Did we have the water that's dying and the whales are being killed and the seals are
Here
dying?
we go again. Lay it off on somebody else. Let's
Well,
point to all the other
Oh,
injustices.
I'm in the world all by myself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
on this one you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was okay, if that's the way you see it for you.
You've never,
He then is asked on how it feels to be seen as a monster.
Charles, how do you
Yeah,
feel?
they think you're a monster because you reflect this news media on me. Cult leader. I never had long hair before I got busted. I never had a beard before I got busted. I went to shave, and the guy said, no, you can't shave. And I said, I need a razor to shave. He said, no, you can't shave. I said, let me get a haircut. He said, no, we don't want you to change your appearance. They said I had a great family, and I was the following and leaders and all that. There was no followers and leaders, a bunch of kids out the ranch playing. To me,
Playing at what?
playing and living. And you want to hear something?
Yeah.
He'll do it better than me.
Do what?
Whatever he does, he'll do it a little better. Kids do, don't they?
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's what makes them such a gas. They always seem to get through.
How were you in school? I hear that you weren't too good, but maybe I heard wrong.
Depends on which school. I did very well in reform school.
Yeah.
I did good in every place that I was ever told to do good in. I've been an outlaw ever since I was born. I went to reform school when I was about 10, and I learned to box and cry, and I learned to do all the things that you do in reform school. Then I went to, I escaped there a bunch of times, and I went to prison, and I learned everything that you do in prison. And I talked to all the guys and asked them everything they knew, and they told me all the things they knew. And then I went to the end of it, and then the old man would be ready to die, and he'd say, well, son, sincerity is the best gimmick, remember that. And I said, all right, be sincere, that'll win it. He said, that's it. Sincerity and honesty, he said, it'll do it. It'll trick them every time. I said, well, sincere and honesty, I never tried that. I tried everything else, but maybe I'll try sincere and honesty. So then I looked in the book, and it says, the wages of sin is death. Now I figured, well, I don't want to die, so maybe I have been sinful here. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'll take a look at my life and say, well, I'm going to change it and start all over. You know, and I know I go to God and I say, hey, man, you're going to forgive me? And he's going to say, what do? You forgive you? I mean, what'd you come to me for? Forgive yourself, man. Don't be bothering me.
How do you feel about spending the rest of your life in prison?
Well, we're all our own prisons. We each are our own wardens, and we do our own times. We get stuck in our own little trips, and we kind of judge ourselves the way we do. You know, I can't judge nobody else. The best thing I can do is try to judge myself and live with that.
Let's assume that one day you were paroled. Let's just
Paroled?
Well, let's just make believe. Do you ever think you will be?
Yeah, do I ever think I will be? Well, I've never been paroled before. I went up to the board, and they said I was incorrigible. And not only was I incorrigible, but that I'd never grow up. And I kind of agreed with them.
If you got out tomorrow, do you have any scores to settle on the outside?
Scores. Do I have any scores out there? And we're making believe, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you, buddy. Well, I don't rightly know. I'm stupid to the point to where I'm not really sure.
Believe it or not, there are a lot of people on the outside that think about the possibility of you coming out of here, and they're genuinely scared of you.
Oh, boy, I might just make dust, everything, terrible. One little guy, terrible. Ooh. Boy, how insecure are we as human beings? Put all our fear on one little guy and afraid to let him out. He might break all the toys.
Why do you say little guy?
Because I'm not the guy you trying to make out of me. That's not me. I don't know what my way is. Everybody keeps telling me I got all these things. I read the other day where I had magical powers, and I told everybody in the chapel, I said, zap, 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 zap. I said, where's my magical powers? Well, you can't read, you can't believe what you read in the press. I can get no magical powers, mystical trips, and all that kind of crap. Yeah, it's kind of silly. Yeah, I'm getting witches and devils, and one guy come up and said, I heard you said you were Jesus. I said, no, man, I ain't said nothing. He said, I'm glad. He said, I'm damn glad. I said, why? He said, I know you ain't him. I said, how do you know? He said, because I am. I said, okay. But I mean, you know, I've been in the nut ward for 10 years, so you can't expect me to rationally take this thing serious.
The legacy of Charles Manson continues to cast a long shadow over popular culture, even decades after his death. His name has become synonymous with evil, a symbol of the dark side of human nature. While his music may have been largely forgotten, his image persists, a haunting reminder of the destructive power of charismatic leaders and the dangers of unchecked influence.